All right. Good morning, YouTube. Live on Wednesday. Get this started. I guess the weather out east is a little worse than it looks like on the map, even. Lots of rain coming in out there. Big storms, it looks like. We had our share of some squall like weather coming through here yesterday. They had a semi tornado reported out in the middle of the state yesterday. So my pictures of a funnel cloud didn't come all the way down. They just the funnel, coming out the bottom of the cloud out there by Winnemucca, I believe. So some rough weather. Had some hail get mixed in with rain. But it's nothing like what's going on out there out east. You look at that big green blob. A lot of rough weather going on out there. So welcome to your pound sign Wednesday wisdom chat. Stole that off Twitter. Apparently that's a trending tagline. Wednesday wisdom on Wednesdays. Not pound sign, of course. It's hashtag, they call it. What's the difference? I don't know. I don't think there is a difference. That came up yesterday. A lady's like telling me what to type in, and she's like, and the next one's generational, pound sign or hashtag. It didn't even process. I was like, just write pound sign, hashtag. And I wrote them both back to back like that. I wrote pound sign, I put them both down as pound signs, not even thinking about what she was trying to say. She's trying to say, depending on how you look at it. And I was looking at it both ways. Didn't even faze me. Oh, maybe crossing over too much. Not living in the old, not living in the new, I guess. I don't know. Or doing a little bit of both. So, yeah, pouring rain storms. They put up out in the Weather Channel. Up to 5 people have been killed in these this week. I was like, wow, didn't know it was that bad. Looking pretty rough. So this is going down out there.
People are dead after severe weather swept across the Northeast. More than 248,000 customers are reportedly without power this morning after high winds sent trees and utility poles crashing to the ground. In Danbury, Connecticut, a man died when a tree fell on his truck. Police in Newburgh, New York, said an 11-year-old girl was killed when she was crushed by a falling tree. Fires in Massachusetts and New Jersey were blamed on lightning strikes. The storms halted air and ground traffic throughout the region. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo declared a state of emergency in 4 counties and said members of the National Guard would help in recovery operations.
There's some big, serious weather going on out there in the Northeast. Hopefully everybody remains unaffected. We got Walter Davis out there and some others. You Can Do It. Several channels out there in that area. Next video is about the lava. We'll continue to roll this.
The volcano more intense, just out of water. When water hits lava, it can form.
That's a lava stream, that big orange.
Just a few months ago, a photographer was
wow, that's pretty impressive.
In a lava field after it started to rain. Officials think he died from breathing in toxic fumes created when rain fell on the lava. The effect is even more intense when lava meets the ocean, as it often does south of Kilauea. Lava and ocean water can form a thick white cloud called rays. It's a combo of lava and haze. It's full of nasty stuff like hydrochloric acid.
So talking about how when lava hits water, it creates a toxic gas. That's pretty crazy.
Blaze was blamed for the deaths of 2 people back in 2000 who ventured out to where lava was entering the Pacific.
All right. Hey, side chat here. Good morning, M. Long. Yeah, storms on and off where you are. It looks like it. Wake up, Canuck. Good morning. How are you? Just go to Vegas? Well, I don't know. Not if you're a Winnipeg fan. I don't know. Man, it looks so good for you. Hockey's a good distraction, though. Hockey's always a good distraction and enjoyable entertainment for a couple of hours. Nothing wrong with that as long as you don't get sucked in and ignore everything else, right? So again, there's a snapshot of the national weather that is putting quite a bit down out there on the east, south. So check your local listings for hazards in your area. Walter Davis is probably wading through with his high waters about right now too. So what's going on out there in Chatland? How you guys doing? So let's get started off. We'll start off on the economic front. We're covering the bond market. Yesterday and how the 10-year and the 30-year, the yield curve is flattening, et cetera, et cetera. One big effect it has is on the housing market. Interest rates go up, people stop buying houses because they can't afford it. One of the side effects of that is building houses has slowed down. And this is a slowdown versus expected. 1.2 million houses still sounds like a lot of houses to start building. Like, where are they putting all these? But I guess there's turnover. I mean, old houses get condemned, torn down. I guess there's some turnover. But it says here they dropped 3.7% when adjusted for the annual rate. They're still suffering from shortages of land and skilled labor. Come to Nevada, there's lots of land. Just the federal government claims it owns it. That's the problem. That's the problem with half the West. There's plenty of land, just somebody else claims it. So they go on about the declining starts and etc. There was 11.3% decline in groundbreaking activity on multifamily housing. They say single families edged up slightly, but multifamily was down. So your duplexes and apartments, I guess, would be under that. Things, the stuff that people can only really afford. Who can afford a single house nowadays if you're making some of the wages and whatnot? And then there's a shortage of building materials, which part of that is probably tied to trade with China and some of those tariffs affected that have been put over the last couple of months. Yeah, it states here last April, the White House imposed anti-subsidy duties on imports of Canadian softwood lumber. These constraints left builders unable to plug an acute shortage of houses on the market, restraining home sales growth. So yeah, that's even another example. That's more directly affected from Canada. So anti-subsidy duties. And anti-subsidy duties. So that just means they took off the subsidy of lumber. Duties were imposed on imports of Canadian. Yeah, that's kind of weird, worded weirdly. I don't understand exactly what that is. But anyway, caused the house prices to be uncompetitive with that. So we talked about the difference between single family and multifamily house units. That's the end of the article. The number of single-family units completed fell 4% in April. See this number 2008 come up quite a bit lately. Single-family units under construction increased 1% to the highest level since June of 2008. Everything is pointing towards almost the economic mirror of 2008. Not good company to be in. So that's the home building situation. If you're looking to buy, you might just wait a few months because we seem to be at peak housing. I know prices have went up just about everywhere. We talked about that $1 million lot in San Jose last week, which was actually from back in April or something. Hey, good morning, J Mac. What's going on? Upstate New York. Good morning. Hey, how are you doing? Welcome. Canadian lumber and drywall can be bought for less than the U.S. I think that's what they were saying. Trump had dropped some of the subsidies that was coming, or had put tariffs or duties on Canadian lumber because it was subsidized. I think is the point they were trying to make, and it comes in cheaper because of that subsidy. But they've maybe countered that. It sounds like to a certain extent, causing prices to go up around here, even though I don't know. Maybe it's cheaper here still, even after that. Tommy boy, what's going on? Looks like you're getting a dousing of rain up there, Tommy boy. We were looking at the map earlier. The weather out east and northeast is pretty rough. Get your high waters out. Yeah, you too, Walter Davis. We expected you to be out slogging through the rain as well. So next up, article on the zero hedge, talking about what we've talked about regularly, the comparison of the empire to Rome. But this is from David Stockman off the blog that they put over here on the zero hedge. Again, the links for this is below in the description box if anybody, all the new people out there, to go check out on your own or whatever, just as reference material. Like the case of Rome before it, the empire is bankrupting America. The true fiscal cost is upwards to $1 trillion per year, counting $200 billion for veterans and debt service for wars. But there's no way to pay for it. Well, the Federal Reserve will tell you they can pay for it, just it causes inflation. They just make money up and put more digits in a computer. It pays for it all, right? So they're going down into the weeds here. It's about the baby boomers and their $3 trillion per year retirement and healthcare entitlement driven issues. So that's $3 trillion. So we're up to $4 trillion that we have issues with. Trump has already refused any Social Security and Medicare reform. They haven't really touched the Affordable Care Act or Medicaid. Yeah, so he's going after baby boomers pretty hard here, stating baby boomers, the ones that marched on the Pentagon in 1968 against the Vietnam War, have pretty much went to sleep since and accepted the ascendancy of the welfare state. So this is a pretty deep article. Make sure you go check it out if you're interested. If you want to go down this road rabbit hole here. So in the bold highlights, to wit, the hoarding ideology of American exceptionalism and the indispensable nation has also ironically liberated from the shackles of Cold War realism when the Iron Curtain came tumbling down. Consequently, it burst into a quest for unadulterated global hegemony. Needless to say, empire is a terrible thing because it is the health of the state and the profound enemy of capitalist prosperity and constitutional liberty. You can't say that no more plainly. Betrayal of non-interventionism. Then the hotspots which dog the empire today include the Ukraine, Crimea, confrontation with Russia, Syrian fiasco, our genocide sponsorship in Yemen by Saudi Arabia, 17-year occupation of, it goes that down the list, 17-year occupation of Afghanistan, Seventh Fleet in the South China Sea, and most especially the swiftly intensifying incursion with Iran. Yep, not learning our lesson, not learning any history whatsoever. Because we'll just run debt until we can't run it no more, right? So he's really getting at the heat of things with the current events with Iran. The perceived threat versus the reality. She gets down here into with this graph with the Iran's ballistic missile range. Oh, this is going to be good here. So the tiny Iranian budget of $14 billion for their defense, which amounts to the 7 days worth of Department of Defense of the empire. Iran has no blue water navy, cannot operate outside the Persian Gulf. Its longest warplanes can barely get to Rome, and it has an array of defensive medium intermediate range missiles that cannot strike NATO, little less the North American continent. The answer to the question above, he says here, is that Iran is no threat whatsoever to the safety and security of the U.S. homeland, but it has run badly afoul of the dictates of the American empire. That is to say, it is presumed to have an independent foreign policy involving Washington prescribed alliances with the sovereign state of Syria and the leading political party of Lebanon, Hezbollah, the ruling authorities, and U.S. puppets in Baghdad, and the reigning power in the Yemen capital of Sana'a. So just not doing what Washington likes, basically, is what he's hypothesizing with that. Good stuff. Bankrupting ourselves off people who cannot affect our lives, I think would be the one way to say it. Hey, what's going on in the side chat? Tommy boy, you're a baby boomer? Yeah, we can't blame it on everybody, but in general, as a mass of people, you know, that whole collective thought thing, you got to blame it on somebody, right? But in general. Yeah, all that stuff, I mean, all that stuff is designed to false sense of security because it can't last forever. And they'd rather have us fight over it with each other over who gets what and who benefits more and who deserves it more, etc., instead of seeing the problem as the deception behind it to begin with, like Social Security was supposed to be yours. Well, they dipped into that long ago, give it to people who never paid in, etc. Leading into a bunch of what this article is talking about, just the creeping empire, omnipresent empire. So he goes down to several historical examples of where we're in everybody else's business, not our own, and how it's directly tied to financial ruin in the long run. So today, by contrast, Washington invades the economic spaces of foreign nations with alacrity. In fact, U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Asset Control, let that sink in. The U.S. Treasury Department has an Office of Foreign Asset Control, lists 30 different sanctions programs, including ones on Belarus, Burundi, Cuba, Congo, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Venezuela, Yemen, and Zimbabwe, which thought they didn't have a currency, that was worthless, along with more visible programs against the alleged malefactors of Iran, Russia, and North Korea. These two are the footprints of empire, not measures of homeland defense, but befitting a peace-seeking republic. That would cost around $250 billion a year, and we rely on an already well-built and paid-for nuclear capacity for deterrence and a modest Navy and Air Force. The $500 billion excess in today's Trump-bloated national security budget is the cost of empire. It's the crushing fiscal burden that flows from indispensable nation folly and its calamitous wrong assumption that the planet would descend into chaos without the good offices of the American empire. There you go. That's all. This is a good article. I wouldn't write it with so many big words, but and it'd be about 1,000 words shorter probably if I wrote it. But it goes on down, bringing out historical examples and the financial implications, uh, etc. But and the intertwining of the national defense with the Federal Reserve. So that's a good thing to go check out, especially if you're trying to get ideas of how to explain the empire to your erstwhile friends and not understanding relatives who think everything is fine and we should be doing all this stuff in other people's backyards that most of these people have never been, places these people have never been to. Truth Freeze, what's up? Good morning. Well, the Cuba ban on travel's lifted. Truth Freeze, they're talking about currency controls, financial stuff. You, I mean, it even had Zimbabwe on the list. I don't even think they have the capability to support their own currency. So that is a very interesting, detailed piece on the empire building effects and the economic collapse that ensues. And that we think we're the indispensable nation. Nobody could live without America. If we weren't here to hold everybody's hand, what would ever happen? Right? So again, this is your # Wednesday wisdom. That was a trending tag on the Twitter. I'm just saying pound sign because hashtag's too trendy and millennial like. So we'll throw it black old school. Um, but they are talking about canceling that summit. That's been in the news all day yesterday and whatnot. Probably a little show in games, maybe. Although you would think that the U.S. and South Korea continuing to conduct military exercises after some good faith was shown that would upset people as well. So I guess that's what is stirring that pot. We'll see how much of it is just a show, I guess. But what else is going on out there in your all's world other than the rain that's dousing a good portion of y'all? Well, J Mac, I think we're running people's business all the time. It seems like not quite a bit. Um, you just look who's leading the train and everything that's going on in the world. Like we're not in their business quite a bit. We are their business. We make them our business. Yeah, we have no business being in the middle of it. We've just made it our business. It's become a rough situation. And the thing is, so often Washington, D.C. fights to keep those people in our business rather than defending our own interests here, with many of those problems stated earlier or whatnot. We are a mess. That's the final, ultimate conclusion, right, Truth Freeze? We are a mess, regardless of. It's just because we've forgotten our mandate and forgotten our original mission. Which I would say would be to live free, but nobody wants to live free. They want more government. Well, maybe not nobody, but seems to be a large portion. The large portion that vote and continually put in the powers that be or applaud them as they go about their way doing what they do. Anybody got anything on their radar they want to bring up here this morning on a Wednesday Wisdom? It's no longer Hump Day. We call it Wednesday Wisdom from now on. Nothing terribly interesting on the zero hedge. Can't believe we're still talking about Russia collusion and this that incessantly sideshow Bob Mueller's whole deal still goes on. I can't believe people are still enthralled by that sideshow, literally. It's like you have to make an effort to avoid looking or talking about it or hearing about it. It was a good article or a post by Gregory Manarino yesterday on the G Plus I shared, talking about how desperate the financial markets are to avoid the freight train coming at them. They were talking about the cases of the Ebola on CNBC rather than talking about the bond chart and the inverted yield curve that was upon them, the inversion of the yield curve right in front of them. But they would rather talk about Ebola, which is kind of off their, their financial channel. Talk about the financial stuff. Ebola in Congo should be like a tag, just a running line on the ticker on the bottom. That things are upside down, trying to avoid the issues. Yeah, and another post just now Greg just made on the G plus. The yield curve is further flattening. It's down to 12.2 basis points. It was at 13 Sunday night. Just little by little. And they're talking about the 10-year bond going to 3.5. Like, that would be insane. A 30-year probably won't keep up with that. Hey, Tommy boy, nothing will happen until something blows up, you think? That's a fair question. Um, Things can stay afloat pretty solid as long as people have confidence in the system, you know? It's all about that. It's all psychological at this point. Faith in the system, the money. There's a lot of fragility out there people don't see um, going on. Hey, Stan, good morning. How's it going up there in the north? Looks like you're getting some rain too. There was even snow in Canada, I think, still this time in May. You got a big patch of snow up there. And let's see, which province is this? I always get that's in the which province is Montreal in? This is Quebec over here, right? And then this would be, I don't know. I'm horrible. I don't keep track of my Canadian friends the way I should. But that's good amount of snow. It's like heading up there. Yeah, not where you are, right? Looks like you're actually dry down there. From today, yesterday was pretty bad. Maybe is Montreal Quebec? So Quebec's on the right, on the east side there. Okay, I'll look it up later. I'll try to get better. Endeavor to persevere. Yeah, Truth Freeze. We talked about it at the beginning of the chat. Some pretty severe weather out east out there. Killed 5. Power was out, etc. Yesterday. There was this video was up on the Weather Channel. Some hundreds of thousands without power, etc.
In Danbury, Connecticut, a man died when a tree fell on his truck. Police in Newburgh, New York, said an 11-year-old girl was killed when she was crushed by a fallen tree. Fires in Massachusetts and New Jersey were blamed on lightning strikes. The storms halted air and ground traffic throughout the region. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo declared a state of emergency in 4 counties and said members of the National Guard would help in recovery operations.
So lots of hail, stuff like that. Trees freeze out there, yeah. Walter Davis is right up his alley. Oh, you're kind of. It's not that personalized. Truth freeze. But we do have on the ground reporters out there, Walter Davis and such. Yeah, that looked like a pretty bad storm, Walter. Would you rather have the snow of the winter or the weather you're getting now? I guess would be the question. Yeah, I saw that Truth Freeze. They had that Australian shooting earlier in the week, the worst since they implemented gun control, gun confiscation a couple decades ago. The one that led to them asking for gun control to begin with. I did see that. I kind of just breezed by it, just kind of like, well, what did you expect? I didn't even see the kind of weapon that was used. You like all the weather, Walter, right? Anything's better than hot and sunny. Is that what you're saying? So we're talking about the financial side. There's an article that came out yesterday that didn't get carried over to the front page of Zero Hedge today, but definitely go check it out. It talks more about we're talking about the alignment with 2008 data and how everything's looking like the exact mirror image, housing wise and everything else. This was an article shared on the G Plus yesterday. To go check out, talks about the bond and stock market mirror of 2008 and how this considers it a disagreement between the bond and stocks, how that correlates to what happened in 2008. Um, but it's a different kind of bubble this time too. It's not micro on the housing just necessarily. It's more widespread than just the housing market. Encompasses a lot more different areas, currencies and whatnot. That's the big concern. It's what they call the sovereign debt issue. You're kind of odd in that respect, Walter. I don't like 100 at all. I'll take 10 over 100 any day. But I guess to each their own. We'll put the links in the description box as well. Remember, there's several links to that. But it goes into how they've not agreed showing the graphs of the divergence of the bond and the stock market, whereas they usually have correlation as shown in this graph here at the bottom. Go down here. Whereas they usually have correlation. Let's see if this pulls up. Generally in the green, they have correlation. We're down here in a separation similar to 2008 down here. That's the crux of that story they're talking about. So fun times ahead, I am sure. We almost disagreed that much. Was back in 2016. But they've propped something up there, I guess. That's probably about the time they started raising interest rates, about right here. And the market made the big correction. That's probably why it jumped back this way during that time frame. So to clarify, though, they say this short-term negative. Whoa, where are you going there? I don't need to avoid a heart attack. This short-term negative correlation means simply that the stock market's new view of inflation and growth, the most positive relative to the extreme negative view of future inflation and growth of the bond market. That made no sense. We'll have to read this 3 times to make any sense of this. So here's the question is, who's right, the bond market or the stock market? The last time the bond market and the stock market disagreed this much, bonds were right, the stock market tumbled 35%. But could the bond market be wrong and the bond market tumble? The speculation is that bonds are, and the betting is that bonds are wrong and stocks are right. So there you go. We already read this article. Well, that's a good point you bring up, Walter. We won't complain about God's creation, but I can move to where I don't have to worry about it as much. Get more. You can fine tune where you live to what you prefer. I guess that's the good thing, and you deal with the anomalies outside of that normal range. Yeah, we got to have tangible stuff, right? Truth in that. The debt is fake, made up, and fiat with the fiat currency, You got to have real stuff. Food, water, property is always good. And we're looking at 3 or more Fed rate hikes the rest of the year. So that's the conflict within the bond market and the stock market. That's a good article going through the graphs and whatnot, especially when you talk about mirroring what happened in 2008. Did I miss? Let me go back up a little bit for. But you used to throw hay, did you, Walter? Yeah, that's rough work. Yeah, Americans are stubborn about their metric system, huh, Stan? Yeah, speaking of the migrant situation, has anybody heard about Australia was talking about offering amnesty to South African farmers that were having their land confiscated? I haven't seen anything on that in a while, but I know Australians were semi up in arms, but lobbying for it, I guess. And that was causing some ish- issues out there, and people were. Well, here's a new article. I wish I would have searched this earlier. I'll catch this at the very tail end. I'm going to have to rush out of here in a little bit, but we'll pull this up because that's right up our alley. But I did see that Australia was trying to take on the refugee status of some of those South Africans, but like I say, they have other migrant issues along with Canada and us as well. So this just popped up in my search, and this is from yesterday. Get out of there. Okay, whatever. Now, this has long been the speculation of what is coming for South Africa about how much South African farmers are going to be able to defend themselves from the roving gangs as much as the government looking to oust them from their land, um, and how much they were going to be able to actually resist what's coming. So I don't know what ITV is, but obviously the headline says it all. Taking up arms against, I wouldn't say the government necessarily, but taking up arms to defend yourself from people trying to infringe upon you. So let me get this over in the description box. This is from yesterday. Let's play this and see what they say. It doesn't want to play anything. Okay, maybe that's not a video. It just says it's a video. All right. And it says the video is not playable. Never mind. All right. But maybe you can play it on your end. Somebody else goes over to that site. But that's going to be the rub. Either people willingly leave their farm and their livelihood, or they don't. And how much are they able to and willing to resist is the big question. So that this article kind of answers some of that. Some of them are willing to take up arms, and that's going to cause problems. for a country that's already got enough problems. So we'll have to continue to follow that. See if we can find a different source of that same article, though. Yeah, right, Barry. That's all the pictures. Everybody in that is pistols, but I don't think South Africa had implemented widespread gun control. I think they had some restrictions, but I don't think. I think they do have long guns as well. But at a certain point, it becomes about will of the mind, similar to the revolution. It's more about who's willing to sacrifice more, or the people, the army and the police that they're going to use to take these people off their land, that they're going to be willing to sacrifice their lives for this project that they're trying to implement here. That's the only article I see coming up that focuses on this issue, but we'll continue to, as usual, look into it and see what comes about as they continue to insist that this is a just and right thing to do for people who have harmed no one. Hey, Tactical Tony's in the house. What's going on, Tony? You getting ready? You just get off work? You're about ready to catch some Z's, run a chat later? Is that what you calling it, the slave ship, Tony? Come on, I thought it was a good gig. Thought you liked this job. All right, folks, thanks for joining us. Thanks for checking in. Again, links are in the description box for any of these articles or discussion points we went through for your viewing pleasure. Unfortunately, tomorrow's Thursday, and things seems like I figured out that Thursday is our worst connection day of the week. So Thursday chats are always a challenge for some reason. But we'll get it in. We'll see you tomorrow morning. But y'all have a great Wednesday Wisdom Day. And we will see you tomorrow. Live free, folks.